Are you thinking about moving to Chattanooga? In this video, I'm breaking down the 5 biggest pros and the 3 honest cons of living here. And my goal by the end of this video is for you guys just to have a better understanding on whether or not Chattanooga will be the right fit for you. Let's dive in. Now, pro number 1 is Chattanooga's easy accessibility to built-in day trips or weekend trips. And it all has to do with its geographic position on the map. If we go ahead and take a look at a map and put a dot on Chattanooga and then draw about a 2.5 hour radius around that dot, you'll find that Chattanooga is surrounded by about 4 different major cities. We have Nashville to the west, we have Knoxville to the east, we have Atlanta directly down south, and then we have Huntsville, Alabama, and Birmingham, Alabama. It's a little bit farther away, about 2.5 hours. But around 2.5 hours, then we have about 5 other major cities that we get to choose from. Now, what that means is that if Chattanooga is lacking an amenity for you, or you don't have to go into work every single day of the week, there are other major cities nearby where you can actually live in a smaller town, more quiet, more nature-forward town like Chattanooga, and then commute to those different areas. This is actually important for a few different reasons. Number 1 is work commutes. For example, one of my clients, Octavian, moved here from Texas, and he's actually a pilot who works for Delta Airlines, and his main base is actually down south in Atlanta. Same situation actually for my new neighbor, who I also helped move here from Memphis, Tennessee. He's a pilot, he works down in Atlanta, and because he doesn't have to go into the office every single day, both of them decide to commute to work a few days per week down to Atlanta. If you think about that, that's about a 2.5 hour commute that people regularly choose to do because they love the city of Chattanooga so much, and they'd much rather live here than in a giant metro like Atlanta. I noticed that this is becoming a more and more popular thing to do is, live in a city like Chattanooga. It's a little bit more small town feel, a little bit more affordable, and then do your 2 hour to 2.5 hour commute down to Atlanta, where it's a bustling city, you've got a ton of traffic, and it's a little bit less affordable to live. On that note, since those 2 client examples are pilots, that brings me to the topic of travel. Chattanooga does have a small metro airport, which is my favorite airport in the country. My wife and I do love traveling, and that is certainly one of the easier airports to get in and out of because there's only a few gates. You're not dealing with crazy traffic or crazy lines. You can drive right up to the front entrance of the airport and be at your gate within 10 to 15 minutes. On the contrary, because it's so small, it's lacking direct flights to several areas in the country and especially internationally. So if you do travel internationally often, we try to go to Portugal at least once a year, then we drive down to Atlanta, where it's a bigger international airport, and we can pretty much fly direct wherever we want. But you can also choose to fly out of Chattanooga, and if there's not a direct flight going to wherever your destination is, then you can take a connecting flight out of Atlanta. So that's sometimes popular as well because you don't have to do that 2 hour commute anymore. You just drive right into the Chattanooga airport, do the 30-minute flight to Atlanta, and then take off. It's the same situation with Nashville. Atlanta airport is about 2 hours away. The Nashville International Airport is about 2.5 hours away. So Atlanta just becomes a little bit more of a popular option. 2 more points real quick on this. If we're lacking a certain store or Chattanooga shopping is just not doing it for you, then again, we've got Nashville and we have Atlanta as 2 of the bigger major cities that you can choose from and do either a long day trip or a weekend trip and do all of your shopping needs. And I'm talking about big box stores like IKEA or something like that. Nashville and Atlanta, they also have probably more luxury brands and luxury shopping anyways. And you see that type of shopping more prevalent in bigger cities anyways. Chattanooga itself is going to have everything you need. But one of the cons of living here in Chattanooga is the shopping infrastructure is just not insane, right? We've got Hamilton Place, which is one of the main malls in the area located in East Brainerd. It has everything that you'd expect to be in a mall. We also have Warehouse Row downtown, which has a few of the more luxury brands. And then we have North Shore and some more stores in South Side, but it's certainly not like a mall in like Miami, Florida or Atlanta by any means. So just understand when moving here, if you're a big mall shopper, Chattanooga might be lacking in some cases. However, you do have Nashville and Atlanta about 2 hours away to make a weekend trip out of it. Now, if you want to go the opposite route and escape the city, escape the shopping, and slow down for a second, Chattanooga is uniquely situated in a spot that's wedged right in between two major mountain ranges. So the city itself sits right at the base of the Cumberland Plateau, and we've got two major suburbs or mountains that are very distinguished here in Chattanooga. That's the start of that plateau. Number one is Lookout Mountain and Signal Mountain. Then over to the east, we have the Appalachian Mountains, where we've got places like Gatlinburg and Blue Ridge and Ellijay, which are absolutely beautiful mountain spots. Now, Blue Ridge and Ellijay are going to be around an hour to an hour and a half drive. And like I said, it's absolutely beautiful. They have spectacular cabins out there. It's gorgeous during the fall. You can also go kayaking and canoeing along some of the rivers and lake systems there. Or if you want to go there during the summer and take a boat and go wake surfing or wakeboarding and that type of thing, guys, the lakes there and the water systems there are absolutely beautiful. And it's because those towns are destination towns, but they're not extremely developed or overly developed, both commercially and residential on the residential side. So those lakes and rivers are not overcrowded. And if you go the opposite route and go the land route and just go hiking to a waterfall or creek, it doesn't seem like you are in a big tourist destination. Because these all are smaller towns and smaller tourist destinations, it just doesn't seem very crowded or overly crowded. It still feels like a mountain escape even during those peak season times. But definitely don't downplay the Cumberland Mountains because they are absolutely beautiful themselves, and you can basically throw a rock at them from the city of Chattanooga. They're super close by and super accessible. For my wife's birthday, I actually took her to Lookout Mountain and we rented a little unique Airbnb, and it was super peaceful. It was a great little weekend mountain escape, and honestly, I just wanted to stay there for several days, even though it was about 30 minutes from my house. Now I'm looking at my phone right now, and if you just take a look at the map with me, you'll see that you're within a 3-hour drive of Blue Ridge, Ellijay, Gatlinburg, which is definitely the more tourist destination of all of these. Pigeon Forge, we have the Highlands of North Carolina, which if you just take the road directly east of Chattanooga, then you're gonna be at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains and in North Carolina. And then we have the 30A beaches that are about a 6-hour drive as well. In spring, when we are a little bit tired of the winter here in Chattanooga, we'll get a group of families and friends together to go to Seaside or Rosemary Beach for a week and enjoy the sunshine and the beach. And the nice thing is we can drive there because it's only 6 hours. And honestly, there have been times where I've gone to the beach for a weekend trip because it's only a 6-hour drive. It kind of justifies me only spending 2 days there. So whether or not you want the city atmosphere, you want to go to an Atlanta Braves game, or you want to go to Nashville for a hockey game, we've got those major cities within a 2.5 hour drive, or you want to go the opposite route and you want to slow down a little bit and you want a mountain escape. We also have that in both regions, both in the Cumberland Mountains and the Appalachian Mountains. Or if you want to go completely opposite and go to the beach, then it's a 6-hour drive down to the Destin 30A area. And so there's just a little bit of everything. We're so centrally located on the map that it's not too far of a stretch to really go anywhere. You're never really landlocked when it comes to experience. Every weekend can literally be a new adventure without having to put up a fight. So location was the number one pro. The number two pro of living in Chattanooga is the outdoor lifestyle and accessibility, which I know we kind of touched on, but I really want to hone in on it. If we look at a map, the Tennessee River runs straight through downtown Chattanooga, and it turns into Chickamauga Lake as we go further north. Chickamauga Lake is wedged right in between the suburbs and towns of Harrison and Hickson. So if you're in the boating and the lake life here is absolutely huge. During the weekends, you'll see everyone take out their boats, whether it's sailing, just a cruiser, or if you like tubing and doing water sports like wake surfing and wakeboarding, that is a huge part of the culture here. during the summer months, I like to go on the lake at least once a week. And the key here is, here's the secret, find a friend with a boat. We super appreciate our friends with boats, and we absolutely, I love you if you're watching this video. I'll get a boat one day if you guys contact the number down below and buy a house. So like I said, during the summer, we have a huge lake life and culture here. But if you're not super into that, or if you are into that, but you also like hiking, you also like exploring waterfalls and hiking along creeks and rivers and discovering blue holes and refreshing yourself in the amazing blue holes we have here in Soddy Daisy, and that's super accessible as well. I tell people that if you travel to the Cumberland Mountains frequently, and I'm talking about like Soddy Daisy, Signal Mountain, Dunlap, down to Lookout Mountain, and just the Cumberland Mountain Range in general, it's a little bit more accessible if you are living in Soddy Daisy or Hickson, because you're wedged right in between the river and the lake and the Cumberland Mountains. And so you've got a little bit of everything kind of just right there within a 15 to 20 minute drive. Your commute from the east side is going to be a little bit easier, but there are still plenty of parks and things to do on the east side, and it's still only a 30-minute drive over the Cumberland Plateau, so it's not too bad anyways. Now, in addition to the lake life, there are also several other activities that people enjoy doing here in Chattanooga. One of them being hang gliding. We also have rock climbing, which is huge here. Mountain biking is also huge. We have some of the best trails in the entire Southeast. Camping is very popular. We also have whitewater rafting, whitewater canoeing, which they actually held I believe the 1996 Olympics in the Ocoee River over in the Appalachian Mountains, about an hour away from downtown Chattanooga. And so you kind of have a little bit of everything like right here. I know a lot of cities say that, but if you actually look at the different parks and the different nature scenes that they've actually integrated within the city itself of Chattanooga and then the suburbs right outside of it, you'll see that it truly differentiates itself from any other city that say that they have the most parks or whatever. And I just want to hone in on this point where literally downtown Chattanooga sits at the base of Lookout Mountain. And so a place like Lula Lake Land Trust, which is one of the most beautiful waterfalls here in the Southeast, that's located in Lookout Mountain, in addition to all of the other smaller waterfalls around Lookout Mountain and Signal Mountain. Like, you can seriously literally throw a rock from the Westin Hotel to Lookout Mountain. It is super close by. And then during the fall and autumn months, you have top tier foliage where all of the leaves around you change colors to that beautiful yellow, orange, and red. And if you want something more than what you're just seeing in your backyard, like I said, you've got the mountains. One of my favorite spots to go to is really Signal Mountain because it's beautiful, but also LJ and Blue Ridge becomes absolutely it's a completely different vibe during the fall months because it's a little bit cooler, but you can still go canoeing when the steam from the lake is rising, and you can go on the different hikes and see beautiful views, and it's absolutely spectacular. We also have some of the best hiking in the Southeast just right here at our doorstep here in Chattanooga, over at Walden's Ridge and Signal Mountain. We have Prentice Cooper State Park. We have Snooper's Rock, which is one of my favorite hikes and destination spots, especially for the sunrise. We also have Edwards Point. There's just so many different hikes to choose from to see the beautiful fall foliage. This is also a season where some of these outdoor activities like hiking and mountain biking become a little bit more popular because of the cooler weather. Chattanooga and the entire Southeast in general does get very hot and humid during the summer months, and so it is nice to get your exercise during the months when it's a little bit cooler. Now, winter is mild enough for hiking. This is also a very popular season for people to go and do their outdoor activities. Then we do get a little bit of snow, but it's certainly not burdensome. It really only snows about 1 to 2 times per season. And when it does, the entire city shuts down. So if you are working, you likely won't have to go into work. And if your kids are in school, they're probably not going to be going into school. And it's really cool because this is a time where a lot of people get to spend more time with their families. It's funny, I drove up, or really, I drove and walked up my street During this past season, when it snowed about 3 inches, everyone went crazy over the 3 inches of snow that we got. It was the headline of the news, right? But I went up to the top of my street and no one was on the road, and everyone was sledding on the roads because no one was on the road, and everyone got to stay home. So it's a really cool culture. Something you'll notice as well is it's very family oriented and kind of just laid back culture where no one's freaking out if work gets canceled, right? Everyone is kind of excited to spend more time outdoors and with their family. Now, I'm gonna go back to my first point when I said that weekend getaways are a thing here and super accessible. Now, if it snows in the valley where downtown Chattanooga is situated, then there's definitely going to be more snow on the Cumberland Plateau in Lookout Mountain and Signal Mountain. And so if you do want to drive up, definitely recommend four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. I have to mention all-wheel drive because some people in the comments just absolutely destroy me on that point. I don't know why. All-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. Go up to the mountains and it looks like a winter wonderland, and it is absolutely gorgeous. That is something to keep in mind though for daily living. If you are living on the plateau, snow is going to be a little bit more prevalent, and ice is as well. It's not a super big deal. Just understand that if it does snow or ice in the valley, then it's going to stick for a little bit longer on top of the plateau. But again, maybe 1 to 2 times per year. Now, I want to go back to the weekend getaway point for a second because it is actually super relevant for the winter. There are ski resorts within a 3-hour drive of Chattanooga if we go to North Carolina. There's one smaller one in Gatlinburg I don't really recommend it unless you are in the very beginning stages of learning how to ski or snowboard. But there are definitely bigger ones out in like Cataloochee and Beach Mountain. Now, if you want to go to a little bit bigger park, there is Snowshoe, which is about a 7 to 8 hour drive from here. And that's actually where I first learned to snowboard. And it's one of the best resorts in the Northeast. Definitely doesn't compare to out west, but if you do want something a little bit more, it's only a 7 to 8 hour drive. And again, I do have to mention, you really don't even need to drive outside of the city in order to find your outdoor adventures and outdoor activities. You got basically everything that you need and everything that you can do along the Tennessee River, at Chickamauga Lake, on Signal Mountain, and on Lookout Mountain. You got your hiking, your rock climbing, your boating, your kayaking, canoeing, paddleboarding, hang gliding, camping, you name it, everything is basically right here. They call this place the Boulder, Colorado of the South without that Boulder price tag. Now, point number 3 is the Southern culture, community, and friendliness. Southern charm is a thing. In a place like Chattanooga, the culture is very much slower pace. It's a slow down. People are not in such a big rush. There's not a huge hustle culture here like there would be in a bigger city like Atlanta or Miami or Dallas even. Because of the environment around us and the nature forwardness of the city, I really think it just encourages a little bit more of a community and slower paced atmosphere. This is a place where if you want to go outside of your home and drive or walk around your neighborhood, go to the grocery store, go to the city, people are going to wave to you and they're likely going to talk to you if you start or spark a conversation if they don't do it first. You'll see that front porch culture still very much exists in certain neighborhoods in Chattanooga where people are just sitting on their front porch, sipping their coffee or tea and seeing what's going on in the neighborhood, waving to neighbors who are driving or doing their morning walk or evening walk and things like that. You'll also see a church on basically every street corner. I live probably within a 5-minute drive of 3 different churches. And so it is a very big thing in the entire South. We are in the Bible Belt. And so just understand that probably weaves itself into some of the culture here as well. And this place is super family and community oriented. It truly is amazing. On 4th of July, they basically shut down the city of Collegedale and they throw a huge 4th of July community get together and party. Really, it's more of a get together, but basically it seems like everyone from Chattanooga, or at least the east side, comes to this event. And when I tell you the amount of families, the amount of kids that attend this, it truly is amazing. It feels like we're going back 20 years when people got off their phones and iPads for a second and actually communicated amongst each other. It's really cool. And then we have similar things on the west side as well, like in Hickson or even the downtown area in Chattanooga. You go to Coolidge Park on any given a weekday evening or on the weekend, you'll see how many people there are just hanging out, sunbathing, walking their dogs, being with their family, walking with their spouse. It's a very active kind of lifestyle as well. Now, pro number 4 is we have all 4 seasons here in the Southeast. Now, what that means is if you are coming from a place like Phoenix, Arizona, or Dallas, Texas, or Tampa, Florida, you are going to find a little bit of relief during the spring and winter and fall months. However, you will find that the summer months are still very much hot and humid and probably not a ton different from where you're coming from. If you're coming from out west, the heat is just different. You've got dry heat out there. You know, hot and humid is kind of just a different thing that you got to get used to. I'm not going to say it's better or worse than anything, but it is definitely something you're going to get used to if you enjoy spending time in a sauna. And some days here in the Southeast, sometimes it feels like you're walking out into a sauna. All right, that's just a given if you are moving anywhere in the South for the most part. However, the good part is that as soon as you're about done with summer, fall starts to come around and the weather starts to get a little bit cooler. We start to get a little bit of a change of scenery where the foliage around you starts to change color to those beautiful yellow and orange and reds. And it's absolutely beautiful. We also have farmers markets, the fall farmers markets anyways, that start to happen on the weekends. And if you go up to like Signal Mountain or Lookout Mountain, out to the more rural areas where there's a lot of country, we'll see pumpkin patches and corn mazes and hay rides, and it's just a really cool culture. And it seems like there's a different culture for each season, right? So we've got the sports and the outdoors and the water sports during summer, and then it starts to slow down a little bit during the harvest season in fall. Now, pro number 5 is the lower cost of living, relatively speaking. Now, if you watched me 2 years ago, the numbers have obviously changed a ton. One of them mainly being the home prices. The home prices basically around the entire United States have gone up a ton, and Chattanooga has gone up with it. And so depending on where you're coming from, the home prices actually might not be a ton different, again, depending on where you're coming from. However, the home prices here and general costs associated with that are still well below the national median. We're going to talk about some other things that affect your pocket, like taxes, right? So there's no state income tax here in Tennessee. If you're coming from Texas or Florida, you're going to be very used to that. You get that here in Tennessee. And on the sales tax end of things, we do have a 9.25% sales tax in Hamilton County. So it is a little bit higher. However, the no state income tax is an absolute game changer. Utility bills and property taxes are also much lower than the national average. And it's so funny, every time I hop on a Zoom call with you guys who reach out from these videos, it's so funny, you know, when going over property taxes and what you can expect to pay and how the property taxes work here in Hamilton County, everyone always seems to be amazed on how low they are. Now, real quick on how the property taxes do work, properties are reassessed every 4 years. And what do we know about property values and reassessments? They go up. The cool part is that there's only a certain amount of taxes that the county can collect each year. And so when those property values do go up and the assessments do go up, your property tax rate actually goes down. So just because your home value went up doesn't mean you're going to be paying more in property taxes. In some cases it does, but sometimes it doesn't. And if we do have an increase, it's likely not going to be a giant increase. And guys, if you have not figured it out already, I am a licensed realtor here in Tennessee and Georgia. So as much as I love making these videos, I love more to help you guys with your real estate needs. So feel free to reach out in any of the ways down below. I love hearing from you guys, and I am the one answering those phone calls, text messages, and emails. Now, here are the 3 reasons to hate living in Chattanooga. A little dramatic, I know. But point number 1 is the traffic. You'll see in the comments sometimes from locals, traffic is absolutely insane, it's horrible. Listen, it exists. And in a town like Chattanooga, in any town in the Southeast, these cities are growing, and with a higher population comes other cons like increasing construction on the roadways and just more people, which means more traffic. Now, before we even dive into this point, I do want to mention, if you're coming from Dallas, Miami, New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Nashville, even in some cases, Knoxville, the traffic here is not terrible at all. In fact, I honestly just got off the phone call with a client, Demetra, who I helped relocate here from Atlanta to Chattanooga. And I asked her, I said, you know, one of the biggest comments I get on these videos is the increased traffic in Chattanooga. And she was like, it's a joke compared to Atlanta or any other major city, right? It's a breeze, she said. Listen, it exists, and it exists in a few areas, namely on I-24 around the bend of the river. There's a section where I-24 meets I-75, and right around that little section on the split, they are doing some construction. They're really doing construction all along I-24, but traffic is typically a little bit more prevalent there as well. And then on the way from Ottawa to Cleveland, you're actually going over and through a ridge. And so sometimes there's traffic right there as well. And then, you know, some of the more populated areas with a ton more commercial infrastructure, like in Hamilton Place, during those peak times, during rush hour, that's going to get a little bit more backed up, and in Ottawa as well. Because these are major towns, during rush hour, there's just gonna be more people on the roads. But for real, if you are coming from a more major city, like Miami, where I came from 7 years ago, where if I wanted to drive a mile, it was gonna take 30 minutes, it's just not the case here at all. It doesn't compare, although it is increasing. And as you live here over time, it might get a little bit more annoying because now your standard of living changed and you're not super used to that heavy traffic. If you're sitting in traffic, you're just going to be annoyed. I don't know anyone who enjoys sitting in traffic. Now, con number 2 of living in the Scenic City are the increasing home prices and lack of land. Now, there's not really a lack of land. If you watch any of my videos, you'll understand that no matter where you're at in Chattanooga, if you drive 15 minutes out, you can likely be in rural country, but land isn't for sale like a lot of people think that it is. And there's just a lot more nuance when it comes to purchasing land here in Tennessee. There's not a ton available, and really there's just not a lot of people who are wanting to sell their land because it's so cheap to own here because the property taxes are so low. But before that, on the home prices, sure, if you're coming from Los Angeles, New York City, San Diego, San Francisco, yes, the home prices are going to feel way more affordable. And then when you pair that with no state income tax and very low property taxes, yes, compared to those major cities, 100%, the home prices are going to feel way more affordable. But for anyone else, like people coming from like the Tampa area or Orlando, the home prices actually may feel very similar. Now, the big difference between those places are going to be the HOA fees, crazy CDD fees, and crazy insurance costs that you guys are dealing with down there. It's very sad. It sucks. I'm sorry. It's just better here, but I'm biased, right? No, but for real, insurance costs are absolutely killing people down there, and it's super, super sad. And then, you know, an unknown cost that a lot of people don't think about are the CDD fees and HOA fees in Florida. We don't have CDD fees here in Tennessee. And the HOA fees are not as crazy. Again, when I talk about Chattanooga and Tennessee being a little bit more laid back, we're looking at that from a holistic point of view. It's just laid back, more laid back in all ways. And sometimes that can be a con, you know, when it comes to like finding contractors or things like that. Where you're just trying to get people to give you a quote or something like that, because it's a little bit more laid back. People don't feel like they need to be in a rush to do things, right? But I digress. Home prices might feel very similar depending on where you're coming from, but the big picture is looking at those other costs like property taxes, insurance costs, utilities, and that type of thing, and really see where your dollar is moving. Another point, because I know a lot of you guys watching this channel really want this, those 1 to 2 acre lots are very expensive, and a lot of times you have to go a little bit more rural to find them. Everyone wants privacy. When people think about moving to Tennessee, they want rolling hills, they want farmland, they want those bigger lots with trees and usable yard space with a lot of privacy. Now, there's no issues with wanting that, but there are issues with the demand and inventory here in Chattanooga and really East Tennessee specifically. Number one, the terrain. If you want to be closer to the city and city amenities, or even more of the major shopping hotspots like Hamilton Place, you have to remember that the geography here is very hilly. That's something a lot of people don't expect when they come here for the first time. Is there's a lot of winding roads, there's a lot of hills. Many of the homes sit on top of a hill, and so your backyard is going to be at least slightly sloped. Now, don't get me wrong, there are certainly areas where you can find a flat, usable backyard and find a home that sits on 1 to 2 acres. You just have to be patient and you have to be ready to go for it whenever the opportunity comes, because that property that's on that fully usable 1 acre piece of land that's very private and has a nice backyard with a decent house is kind of scarce out here, and it's in high demand. And what do we know about things that are scarce and in high demand? It drives value. Those values are going to go up, so the home prices kind of reflect that. And again, unless you're going a little bit more rural in a non-established neighborhood, think 20, 30, 40 minutes outside of the city, yes, those pieces of property become a little bit more prevalent. However, if you want to be in an established community, the inventory is very limited. If you're coming from a place like Texas or Florida and you're imagining Tennessee with its rolling hills and farmland and horses and cows and that beautiful, picturesque rolling hill farm rural landscape that you're imagining outside of the actual state of Tennessee, I think what you're actually imagining is North Georgia. Now, don't get me wrong, it 100% exists in Tennessee. However, you are going to be absolutely paying for it. It's in very high demand and it's scarce. Now, my solution to that is this, if you're open to hearing it. North Georgia is such a beautiful spot. Think Chickamauga and Ringgold, Georgia. And something you might have to struggle with is that state income tax they have down there in Georgia. But really what you're paying for is the lifestyle. This is something that I certainly had to struggle with. My wife and I are under contract on 17 acres down in North Georgia because we couldn't really find anything that we were looking for on the Tennessee side for a decent price. So if your realtor is telling you, hey, North Georgia can be a hot spot and can be a great opportunity for you guys to get some land or a house that sits on a little bit bigger lot, it truly is a great opportunity and it's very beautiful around that Tennessee-Georgia border. And typically it's way more affordable. I'm actually having a conversation tonight with a lady named Stephanie. She was actually one of the first people to reach out to me from this YouTube channel. She ended up purchasing a home here in Chattanooga. And she's telling me she might want to sell her house and move down to North Georgia so that she can have stables and have a little bit more land for her horses. There's not a ton of availability here in Tennessee. And when it does come available, it's either priced extremely high, or if it's priced decently, it's gonna go very quickly. Now, con number 3 of living here in the Southeast are the bugs, allergies, and humidity. Okay, so I'm gonna keep it real and I'm gonna keep it simple for you. During summer, this is the hot and humid months, and this is also mosquito season. During spring and fall, these are the allergy seasons. And then winter is a nothing season. Now, keep in mind, I'm filming this video at the end of August. It is certainly humid out here, but I've gotten bit maybe once in the hour that I've been filming this video. And so if you're coming from a place like Florida, for example, where everything is out to kill you, including the bugs and the mosquitoes that you have down there, doesn't really compare. There's probably a month out of the year where it gets so hot and humid and there are bugs and it's super muggy, especially if you're in a more rural setting. Yeah, you will get bitten up. But man, I went on a walk. I was in Florida several months ago during summer. No, I think it was during spring. And I went on a walk and I got bit so many times by mosquitoes or the no-see-ums that are out there. I think comparing, directly Tennessee to Florida, I think there's more in Florida, to be honest with you. But listen, they exist here as well. If you are living in a more rural setting, or if you back up to woods, or you live near a water feature and you have a back porch, I always suggest, screening in that porch if you enjoy spending time outside on that back porch, or if you like to open up those windows to let the breeze go through. I definitely suggest getting screens for those windows if you don't already have them. The bugs do exist, and a lot of times we just want to minimize our exposure to the interior of the house anyways. Now the heat and humidity here is very real. And probably end of July, early August, for about a month, it does get very, very hot and humid, very similar to Florida. Now the difference is we don't have it 9 months out of the year, right? We have it for a summer season. And then like I said, once you start to get a little bit tired of the heat and humidity of summer, then fall starts to come around. And we're kind of experiencing that right now. It is the end of August, but I have noticed, although it is still very hot and humid, the weather is starting to cool down a little bit and we're easing into those cooler months. Now guys, every place has its pros and cons, but if you value community, if you love the outdoors, you love spending time outdoors with your family and friends, you want a little bit more of a slower, laid back culture, then Chattanooga might be a great place for you. And guys, just a reminder, I am a licensed realtor here in Tennessee and Georgia. So as much as I love making these videos, I love more to help you guys with your real estate needs. And I love to hear from you. And I'd love to hop on a 30-minute Zoom call and go over some of the neighborhoods and areas that might be a good fit for you based on your budget and needs and things of that nature. So contact me in any of the ways down below. Again, I am the one answering those phone calls, emails, and text messages, and I love to hear from you guys. If you like this video, hit that like button, comment down below, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.